A telltale sign, I think, that someone isn't meant for you or aligned with you is if they're creating scarcity in the dynamic that you two have. And I think this is something that might be overlooked and might be actually seen as a positive sometimes. This idea of feeling like you are chasing somebody or you need more from them or you're kind of like really desiring them, you're yearning for them, that can sometimes be seen as a good thing. And I'm not here to say that it's not. I think it's part of the human experience to yearn, to desire, sure. It's what a lot of art is born from, this desire, this yearning for someone. A lot of music is written about that. What I mean though is if you're in a relationship with somebody, this could apply to friendships too. I think it's more pertinent when it comes to romantic relationships, but it can apply to any relationship really. And I think it does tie into familial relationships, and we'll talk about that a little bit as well. But I think if you're in a relationship with somebody romantically and you feel a sense of scarcity with them, in this meaning that you're always desiring more. There's not quite enough. You feel a little bit hungry every time you're with them. And I mean emotionally hungry. Your tank feels somewhat empty around them. You can never quite get enough of them. That's probably a sign that person's not for you. And so, okay, on the one hand, I think it's important to understand what your idea of enough is, because there's many people who have an anxious attachment style where nothing is enough because there's always like a deep core yearning that can never be truly filled until they do a lot of work on themselves and understand what they need from them first. Like if you're not feeding yourself the way you need to be fed emotionally, you won't be able to get fed from someone else. It won't be enough because they can only give you as much as they can give in a relationship that's healthy. And then the rest has to be filled up by you. However, if it's not related to an anxious attachment style and you understand, of course, someone can't fill my entire cup for me. However, you're filling your cup up. You're doing what you need to do. You're trying to stay as much in alignment with your values and your needs from yourself. And you're with somebody who does not create a sense of fulfillment in a healthy way with you. And you're feeling that sense of lack, of I need more, I'm depleted. That's probably a sign that person's not for you. And I think, again, some of us might take that as a sign that we really like somebody, right? If we feel that feeling of yearning, of desire, of I need more, we might see that as, oh, I must really like them. I must really be desiring them, wanting them. It might also be that they're not giving you enough. And it might not be a malicious thing on their part. It might be, sure. It might not be a malicious thing though. It might be based on their own attachment style. It might be the way they relate to people in relationships. They might be very, unwilling to be vulnerable with others. They might not want to attach too much. They might have commitment issues. It doesn't really matter. None of that has to do with you. I think that is also an impulse we have, is to believe that it has to do with us. We're not good enough. That's why they're not giving us enough. It has nothing to do with you. It really just has to do with how someone relates to people in relationships. In the same way, the way you relate to people in relationships has nothing to do with them necessarily. It's about you. So remove the idea from your mind that it has to do with your worth. What the point is of this podcast episode is to understand that the feeling of scarcity simply is a sign that there's no alignment here with what you need and what you're getting from this person. It's not about you. It's not about your worth. It's not about your value. It's not about figuring out how to get them to give you more, what you have to do to get more from them, what magical thing you need to say that'll finally unlock their closeness, their intimacy, their vulnerability. That's not the point of this, because there is nothing you can say. There's nothing you can do. And you should feel really good about that. Because I think when you have the belief that I can do something more, I'll be better, I'll be more, I'll whatever, you're telling yourself that you're not enough right now. And that's why you're not getting enough. And so like I said earlier, this definitely, from my own experience and a lot of the reading I've done on this, it has to do with your relationship with your caretakers when you were a kid. Your parents or your caregivers in general, whatever that looks like for you. The way you understand how to relate to people is how you related to them and how you were taught to relate to them. So if there was a sense of scarcity in those dynamics, believe that there will probably be scarcity in the dynamics you gravitate towards in the future. So it's important to recognize that. And while it might feel familiar initially, the fact that it's familiar and you know that it feels comfortable to be in this state of yearning all the time is exactly the sign you need to know, oh, this is not for me. I shouldn't be here. You know what I mean? And some people are lucky enough to have relationships with their parents or caregivers where there is a lot of balance. a lot of neutrality. There isn't a sense of yearning that feels familiar to them. What feels familiar to them is stability and security and being consistent, and which is great. Love that for you. But I think many of us also have not experienced that. So what's familiar to us is not going to be the same as what's familiar to them. So for them, what's familiar is probably good. It's healthy. They've learned how to be secure in relationships. Great. Love that. What's familiar for us might be a little bit different, but we have to use that feeling of familiarity when we know what our familial dynamics are, to use that as a point of reference when we are encountering somebody. We realize like, okay, this scarcity, it feels comfortable to be in. It feels enjoyable in a sense to be in this scarcity, in this yearning. That should be a sign that it's probably not for you. Because again, I think it's tied to this belief that I just have to be more, I have to do more, I have to be better. It might be, again, the conditioning you have from your childhood, that you have to be better, do better to get a certain response from somebody. It's not really what it's about. It's not about you and what you need to do. If you lean into that, if you stay in that dynamic, if you consistently feel that lack and respond to it with being different or trying to say something that'll hook somebody, or just being in a state of yearning all the time, never quite getting enough of what you need, you're just telling yourself that you're not enough. It doesn't mean you aren't enough. You're just validating that belief for you. And that's not kind to yourself. It's not good for you. It's putting you in a position where you now continue that cycle because you think, well, if I'm not enough, then I have to stay with somebody who's not giving me enough because I'm not going to get more. Like, I'm not going to find anything better than this. So you stay there, and then it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. You don't feel like enough, so you don't get enough. And when you don't get enough, you don't feel like enough. And that's not good. That's not healthy, and it's not kind to you. Of course, this is something that, is understandable when it comes to the way we have been taught to relate to people. So I'm not here to shame anyone for being in these dynamics. It's more about you understanding what they are and seeing them for what they are. And so for me, I use now that feeling of scarcity of there's not enough of this person. Like, I don't trust that if I were to reach out, I would get a response in return or an equal amount of energy in return where I feel satiated. That to me is a sign that this is off. There's something off here. Again, be mindful of this. If this is an anxious attachment, if this is something where you need more because you're not giving yourself enough, that's not healthy either. And nobody will be able to fill that void for you. But if you understand, okay, I know that I need to fill my own cup, and you're actively trying, you're doing your best. Nobody's perfect, of course. And you're still feeling that scarcity from somebody else, then that's probably not aligned for you. And don't keep yourself stuck in a dynamic like this, thinking that you can change a person, or you can do something that changes a person by how you change yourself, or thinking that things will get better, because in a sense, you've kind of seen what you needed to see. Of course, people do change. People do improve. There are some people that just need some time or some help, sure. But if that's not established, if that's not a conversation you're having, if you're just deciding that on your own about a person, that's not healthy. And it's probably not true. Because again, I think it's all about communication and a clear understanding of where things are and where you stand with each other. But if you're just feeling scarcity and there's been no inclination that it'll change, or that person wants to change, or things are going to be different, and you're just feeling hungry, it's probably a sign that it's not aligned for you. And I know that's hard. It's hard to accept that because maybe you like this person. Maybe they have some great qualities to them. Maybe they're very kind. All of that can be so valid. It doesn't mean that this person is awful or they're a narcissist at all. Again, it can just be the way they have been taught to relate to relationships, how they've been taught to show up in relationships, or maybe just all that they can give right now or forever. That's just it. Like, that's their limitation. And it doesn't mean that they're right or wrong, good or bad or anything like that. It's about you and what you need and where you're willing to look for what you need. So here, where you are right now, where you're looking, you're not getting what you need. So now what? It means you have to look somewhere else. And not, again, as a form of abandonment of somebody who might need you or who might be, a little bit different in pacing. Sure. Again, all of it has to do with communication, though. You have to talk about it. You have to be open and honest and vulnerable about that stuff. But if that person's not willing to, you can't make that decision for them. You can't decide that they just need you to be there for more time and then they'll change. That's not fair to them. It's not fair to you. You're deciding for them who they are, and it might not at all be accurate. And then you're just living in a state of fantasy of this person will be a certain way if I just stay long enough or I do this enough. And they might not. And there's nothing you can do about it. Again, there's a grief to this. It doesn't make them a bad person. It might just be that that's who they are. And you have to accept people for who they are. And that doesn't always mean that you have to be there forever. And I say this for people pleasers. I'm a people pleaser. I have had to learn these things over and over again. People pleasers will get stuck in this trap of feeling like seeing potential in people, seeing more of who they can be versus accepting who they are and not judging them for who they are, just accepting it as what it is. That judgment piece is a big part of this too. If we judge them, it's often a reflection of how much we judge ourselves. We think we see potential and capability within us, but we're projecting it onto others, when in reality, that's just maybe who they are. And it's not good or bad, right or wrong. There's no morality to it. It's just that's them. And we either accept it or we don't. If we don't accept it, we're veering into the territory of limerence even, or of just not being respectful to them or to ourselves. Because now we're staying in a situation where it's just not working for us. Instead of letting them go, letting ourselves find someone who's more aligned with us and letting them find someone who's more aligned with them. Not to say that you have all the control in this, but I think that's the only amount of control you do have, is deciding, am I staying here or am I not? What am I doing? Where am I going? Where am I looking for what I need? Is this enough for me? If it's not enough, what now? So I hope this gave you a bit of a perspective on a tool, a sign to use when it comes to understanding if someone's aligned for you. Because I think a lot of us will ask, is this person for me? Should I stay? Should I go? Like, how do I know? What if they change? If there's that deep feeling of scarcity, of lack that this person is creating, intentionally or unintentionally, it doesn't really matter. But if you're feeling that and you've done what you need to do to make sure that you're filling your own cup, but you're still feeling empty in relation to them, maybe even drained by them, it's not aligned. It's not, because it's not going to work. It's not working now, which means it's not going to work. You've seen what you need to see. Of course, like I said before, if you've had a conversation and that person says they need more time or they just need a bit more support or they're working on it, that's a different story. But if that conversation has not happened and you've seen something repeated over and over again, and that's just who they are, like you've seen it, you see it enough, you understand that this is who they are, it's not for you. It's not aligned with you. You cannot live your life feeling hungry forever because you're scared to let go or scared to move on too soon because you think maybe they'll change at some point. You've seen what you need to see and you have to accept it for what it is right now. Again, maybe they'll change. And if that's the case and you are more aligned in the future, you'll find yourselves back together, right? You'll realign. That's, I think, the beauty of allowing for flow, right? And realignment. If it's meant to be, it'll flow back together. And it'll work and it'll be great. And you don't have to really do much more than just being, again, authentic, aligned with your values, your morals, whatever you need. But that's that. Other than that, thank you for being here. Thank you for listening to this. I hope it helps you out. If you want to learn more about this, I talk about these things over on my Substack. Follow me on Instagram and TikTok for my short form content. And if you want to just chat about these things with me, feel free to book a one-to-one call over on my website. Other than that, thank you for being here. And I'll be back again soon with another episode.